All right, boys and girls, today we're going to read chapter 2 of Poppy. Poppy remembers. A stinging sensation on her nose woke Poppy. She touched a paw to the sore spot and winced. Then she looked about in the dark and shook her head with confusion. Where was she? Under a piece of rotten bark? Where was the bark? On Bannock Hill? What was she doing there? She had come with her boyfriend, Ragweed. Where was Ragweed? No sooner did Poppy ask herself that than the full horror of what had occurred rushed upon her. Ragweed dead, eaten probably. Poppy closed her eyes. The sheer ghastliness of the thought made it hard for her to breathe. Then, recalling how close she had come to the same fate, she checked herself for other injuries. Though her plump, round belly was white, the rest of her fur was orange-brown. She had large ears and dark, almost round eyes, full whiskers, tiny nose, pink toes, and a tail. Even for a deer mouse, Poppy was rather dainty. Upon continued examination, everything except the nose seemed to be intact. She stole a look out from under the bark and considered her situation. She was on Bannock Hill, alone, without permission. Oh, how she wished she were home. From her earliest days, just a few full moons ago, her parents had been teaching their litter about Mr. Ossex. She recalled how they had lined up all 12 of them to take instruction. Notice here that Poppy is thinking about the past. In the past, Ragweed is still alive. This is what we call a flashback, okay? So the author is going to take us back in time for just a little while. Mr. Ossex has been about for ages, her father, Lungwort lectured in his sternest voice. He was a rather stout fellow with elegantly curled whiskers and slightly protruding front teeth. His crowning glory was an ivory thimble he had found, and which ever since he'd worn as a cap. Mr. Ossex has been here longer than any mouse's living memory, Mr. Longwood continued. The territory around Dimwood belongs to him. Mr. Ossex is king. And he protects us, said sweet Cicely, Lungwort's wife and Poppy's mother. That is the most important thing. Sweet Cicely was a small creature, even for a deer mouse, with soft, pale eyes and a nervous habit of flicking at her ears with her paw as if they were dusty. Protects us from what? Poppy remembered Ragweed asking. As an outsider, he had been taken to hanging around with the family. He was always asking questions. Why do deer mice live here and not there? Why do you folks eat this and not that? Why is your fur dark on top and white on the bottom when mine is golden? Why couldn't it be the other way around? Though these were constant questions could be irritating, Poppy had to admit she'd often wondered about the answers. Curiosity, however, was not something her parents encouraged. Poppy admired Ragweed's persistence. Mr. Ossex protects us from the creatures that eat us, Lungwort answered gravely. Raccoons, foxes, skunks, weasels, stoats. One by one he displayed pictures of those animals. Most important, he protects us from porcupines like this one. He held up the lurid portrait of a huge black-nosed beast covered with gruesome spikes. Blood seemed to drip from its snarling mouth. The young mice gasped in dread. Porcupines are our particular enemies, Lungwort insisted. There is nothing porcupines won't do to catch mice. What would they do with us then? Acorn, one of Poppy's sister, asked in a trembling voice. First, they shoot their bobbed quills into you, Lungwort said. Then they trample you, sweet Cicely added. Finally, Lungwort concluded, they break you into little bits and gobble you up. So I guess Mr. Ossex protects the mice from other animals, maybe because he hunts them or they're afraid of him, or I guess we'll see. Now, it was terror the young mice felt, all except Ragweed. Lungwort, he demanded, other than that picture, have you ever seen a porcupine? A real one? Not precisely, Lungwort snapped, but let me tell you something, Ragweed. I'd be more than thrilled to get through my whole life without ever seeing one. After all, Mr. Ossex has seen porcupines. Often. In private conversations with me, mind, these are actual personal experiences I can verify. He informed me that porcupines are not only extremely dangerous, but also devilishly sly. Take note that his judgment comes from a powerful meat-eating bird. The point is, Mr. Ossex protects us from the porcupines. It was he, in fact, who was kind enough to educate us about them as well as supply these pictures. There's an illustration on this page, and I will show it to you, but first I want you to make a picture in your mind. Lungwort is showing pictures to the other mice. It's almost like they're in school. All right, let's see how your mental picture matches up. And here it is. See, did it match? Then how come you have to worry about this dude Ossex too? Ragweed pressed. Struggling to control his temper, Lungwort tapped his thimble clap down on his forehead. Fuming, he replied, Mr. Ossex protects us from vicious porcupines only when we accept him as our ruler, that's why. All he requires that we ask his permission whenever we move beyond the immediate area of Gray House. We have freedom to go up to the old orchard, up to Glitter Creek. We can do the same for Farmer Lamount's fields, at your own risk, of course. Life is full of danger. Go beyond, however, and you need Mr. Ossex's permission. What is his reason? Ragweed persevered. Sweet Cicely, brushing her ears, sighed with exasperation. How Poppy, her own daughter, could take up with such an ill-mannered ruffian was beyond her understanding. All the same, she said, Ragweed, Mr. Ossex has patiently explained to my husband he needs to know if we're moving about so he won't mistake us for porcupines. Asking permission is a small sacrifice to pay for our safety. Lungwort nodded in his agreement. That owl, he pointed out, has incredible vision and hearing. He can hear or see anything in the dark. And a good thing, too. Porcupines prowl at night, move like lightning. Mr. Ossex says, shoot quills without asking, kill without mercy. No, my boy, we don't argue with Mr. Ossex. He's our protector. If we disobey him, break his rules, and I can't say I blame him either, he gets upset. What will he do then? Asked Leaf, one of Poppy's brothers. He'll eat you, Lungwort replied briskly as he put away the picture of the porcupine. And he continued, it happens. During the past year, we have lost some 15 family members. It may be presumed that all failed to ask Mr. Ossex for permission to go somewhere. The children were shocked into silence. Ragweed, however, spoke up again. Hey, Pops, didn't I hear you say porcupines are huge? You saw the picture, Lungwort responded. And don't call me Pops, it's common. So them porcupines are bigger than us, right? A lot bigger, Sweet Cicely said, emphasizing the lot. Well, old lady, Ragweed kept on, if them porcupines are so huge and we're so small, and if this dude owl has such amazing sight, how come he might confuse us mice with them dude porcupines? Know what I'm saying? An indignant Sweet Cicely looked at her husband. Lungwort sputtered, Ragweed, for your information, proper grammatical usage is those porcupines, not them porcupines. And while I'm thinking about it, if you intend to court my daughter, I'll thank you to groom your hair properly when you get up in the morning. And as for that earring you've taken to wearing, I don't like it, not one bit. This family is committed to keeping up mice values and is opposed to stupid questions. With that, Lungwort stalked away, tail whipping about in agitation. And here he is. He's fussing at Ragweed. On Bannock Hill, Poppy remembered it all. She also remembered it was Ragweed who insisted they come up the hill, but that he absolutely refused to ask Mr. Ossex permission to do so. Perhaps then, what occurred, horrible as it had been, has served Ragweed right. Then and there, Poppy vowed she would never leave home again. The difficulty was that at that moment, she was far from home, frightened and alone. And we'll find out more about what happens tomorrow. Thanks for listening.